outside again. I came for the M's, I came for the win. Yeah, me and all my friends. It's a 4th century, man, we all going in. Big bro, I rock told. Better use what you got, get what you want. Swear to God, since that day, I've been cooking it back, trying to make this shit grow.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Beezy Show here in the desert. We are in desert vibes right now. This is pretty cool, very interesting. Very, very special guest today. He is an amazing audio engineer, producer.
Thank you.
Overall cool guy. We'd like to introduce to you Bobby Chips, a.k.a. Malibu Bobby, a.k.a. one of the coolest guys in the audio industry, Mr. Bob Horn. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, dude.
Thanks for having me.
We are going to have a cool convo today, and I appreciate you for letting us do this.
Of course.
It's pretty big. But yeah, man, starting the pod, as you know, and just kind of like having fun with it, you know. So we have some usual suspects on the first couple episodes. So,
yeah.
You know, B-Star, shout out to B-Star, which he is behind in the producer seat today.
Nice.
He said, Bernard, you know, whenever you want to come be a podcast producer. You know Bernard. You met the other Bernard. He was at the, what was the event we just did? At the Black Lotus recording studio, the one.
Right.
Yeah, with the dreads.
Yep.
Yeah, he's kind of like our teammate, so it's
Nice.
us three together, come together and do some fun stuff.
Very nice.
Fun visual. But yeah, Bobby, how are you, man? How's everything?
I'm good, man. Yeah, just
chilling.
Yeah, just doing my thing as usual.
Yes, I know you're probably, as you said earlier, insanely busy.
Yeah, this is definitely a busy season, which is, it's always good if we're busy in the fall because that means when Christmas comes, we can slack a little bit.
Yeah. It's gonna be a good Christmas.
Because everyone basically, especially the record labels, they take a big break. Like no one works anymore in December.
Oh, okay.
So the labels disappear. You can't get paid. You can't get anything done. So everyone just backs off, and then we just kind of, after the second week of January, it's like, hey, we should probably get back to work so we can, pay the bills.
Let's start paying some bills. That is interesting. I remember, maybe you've told me, but other, people like in the industry and stuff, like, they've said that. Like, I think B-Star, I think you told me that too one time, where it's like basically Christmas time, it's like, that's it.
It's the dead zone.
Yeah. Everyone's on holiday, and
that's also why they tell artists don't release an album in the fourth quarter because no one's paying attention.
Wow, yeah, Christmas. And
you would think because of shopping they are, but
they're not.
This just is shown through history that record sales always do worse in the fourth quarter unless you're like huge, like Beyonce, Taylor Swift. Then it doesn't matter.
Or I was gonna say even more, unless you're Mariah Carey.
Well, if you're doing
she's the only one that makes money during the holidays.
She commands Christmas.
Bro, she owns Christmas.
She owns Christmas.
That's so crazy that, like, because I think it was last year during Christmas, like whatever, they sent out Billboard or whatever, it was like, did a couple posts online, and they were saying like the percentage of increase in the Christmas song she does, and it's like 300% increase during the hall. It's like the craziest thing.
It's not dying off at all.
No, that'll be here forever, dude. I see, that's the thing, Bob, is like, how do we make some of those kind of records?
The year 3000, it'll be like Mariah Carey Christmas. Who's Jesus?
Yeah. Mariah is Jesus. That's insane, dude. That's so insane. Yeah, man, that's good, man. That's, busy's good. I mean, even for us too, like with the content stuff and all that, like, we got some cool stuff coming in, and the pod being one of them, for the Intrepid Network, which like B-Star basically built out. So basically it's like the media company that's going to like, network. It's going to house a lot of like content and like.
Nice.
The other Bernard does like films. So he does like short films. He's posted a couple on that YouTube page. And then, B-Star, is with B-Star stuff, and he has a show on there with like his daughter too, like a little science show and stuff.
Oh, cool.
It's like a cool, so it's like a just a cool place where we're gonna start like housing in a lot of like content.
Right.
I know on the pod that's out right now, the B-Star one, basically, there was some clips from that one that he was like explaining like, this is what we want, which is like content creators, people, come over here, let's let's start like kind of chopping it up and like let's start like thinking some cool stuff,
Right.
like getting a whole community together, like start
That's
making
awesome.
some cool stuff. Yeah, it's pretty sick. It's pretty
Creating
sick.
your own empire.
Basically is what we're doing. Yes, we're gonna be the next Apple.
Nice.
And I swear I will remember you, Bob, because I'll say, look, episode 7, or what is it now? You're 6, 7, 8, so probably like 9. I'll be like, look, you see, you're in the top 10 first pods.
There you go.
So
I'm gonna need 0.002%.
right. You're like early investor.
Right.
If you, this is actually good. This actually, we'll bookmark this. If you want to invest, Bob Horn, let us know. The Intrepid Network is actually openly looking for investors at the moment.
Nice.
So if you'd like that, we'd accept. Cool, man. I mean, you know what? For me, when I came into this today and I was thinking about it, like, since I asked you and like, what we're talking about, I think it would only be right if we start from the beginning, but we start from our beginning. Okay. And then I want to hear your beginning, but our beginning mostly is probably Clubhouse.
Right.
Clubhouse is where this all started.
Yeah, for sure.
And
The
pandemic.
pandemic.
Yeah, dude. Pandemic happened.
Yeah.
I met Lou during the pandemic. Shout out Big Lou.
You guys met then as
yeah,
well?
so basically what it was like I was born here, but then very early I left to Florida.
Right.
Grew up there most of my life, and then I moved to Atlanta because my dad lived out there. So I was helping him out he has like a contracting company, just like doing like deliveries and stuff. He has like a couple trucks, and like I would just help him out. And then in that time, I was there for actually I was actually in Georgia for a few years, like 2-3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then basically, Nico hit me up like year like 3-ish when I was in Atlanta, and he was like, "Hey, I know you're releasing music and you're like doing your artist thing, but like I know someone who like needs help or whatever. So go to this studio in Atlanta and help this guy out."
Oh, wow.
Lo and behold, Big Lou.
Shout out to Louisville.
Shout out to Louisville. Shout out to the connector of human beings. But so that's why I met him, and then we started working at, the studio, like doing a bunch of stuff. I kind of took a back seat on like the artist stuff, like making music. Then I'm like, I kind of want to shift into like content or whatever. So that's kind of where like the shift happened of like, maybe this artist stuff is like, maybe I can like pivot, do something different. And that's when I got into content, But yeah, so basically through that journey, I'm not sure who started. I think it was like Lou and Nico. I think it was Lou originally, and then he started like spreading the seed out. But he was like, we need to do something. Let's get on this Clubhouse app. In the beginning, dude, it was pandemonium.
Yeah.
We were just on there just to like.
Oh yeah, I mean the government shut us down. We couldn't go anywhere. Yeah. Nobody was working, so
bro,
why not be in a chat room with open mics where
you
can just go crazy and goof off or talk serious.
Oh, dude, it was. So basically, that's what happened. We
were doing sometimes like 6 hours.
Oh, bro,
or more.
Well, so basically, industry swap meet started. We got that going. And just a little tidbit for that. I always told Nico when we first started it, I told him, I'm like, industry swap meet. And I don't know if he had the same idea as far as like for the swap meet idea, but I told him because he also grew up in Florida. That's how me and Nico know each other, because like we grew up in Florida together.
Right.
So basically, there was a flea market out there. I forget where. It was like somewhere in Broward, in like Broward County somewhere. But it was called Swap Shop. And it was like it's one of those like flea markets that are like well known in Florida, in that area. So I remember the font always from that place, and I told Nico, I'm like, bro, we need to use that font for this thing. We need to use the Swap Shop font for this thing. And I did. I tried to do it like my little early graphic design days. Yeah. I'm like, let me try. And I kind of did it. He was like, let's run with it. And then we ran with it. But, dude, Clubhouse, 6 hours. I remember Lou was on it for like, insane amount of hours, bro.
Yeah.
Insane.
So I know a lot of mix engineers like myself. We would have Clubhouse on, sitting on our desk, and we'd just kind of be listening with one ear, waiting for either something that, like a topic that we wanted to stop and listen to, or for our name to be called.
Right.
And then we'd like stop mixing and jump on the phone.
Yeah.
And,
that was so interesting. I remember you guys were saying that too back in the day, because also there'd be times where I think like people are calling on you, like,
and we're not answering,
because they'll go into like this whole thing and like compression and then the EQ and then and like all this like tech talk, and they're like, Bob does this too or whatever. And I think it's almost sometimes where like they try to like
pass the mic.
Yeah, they pass the ball or whatever, and then it's like silent for
Just
Bob.
crickets.
He's nothing. Or like, Bob,
The music's
Bob
too
over
loud right now.
And then you're like, oh, yeah, sorry, I was just mixing this record. What'd you guys say? Just like I had to repeat the whole thing.
That was good though, man. I think that kept a lot of people sane.
Oh yeah, dude.
During that time where you couldn't interact with any humans.
I know.
And there was a lot of good information, a lot of bad information, but a lot of great information on those rooms. You know?
And what because I know I have a few in mind, but what's something that kind of stuck out to you where you're like, damn, this is a pretty like cool
just
app.
Some of the heavyweights that got on there.
Yeah.
Like some of the guys that a generation before me, like Gary Noble.
Yeah,
and
of course. Bro, R.I.P. Gary Noble.
Stephen Dent, some of those, Michael Denton.
Yeah.
Just to hear them talk about things they do in their everyday audio engineering world and music world, and just to get that verification that's like, oh, okay, I'm doing the same thing. I'm not an idiot.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a check for that. We just talk to our friends like, hey, do you print your mixes like that? Do you tune your vocals like this? I was like, okay, I think I'm doing it right.
Yeah.
But then to hear people with success talk about the same exact technique, the way you're doing it, it just kind of verifies like, okay, I'm on a good path.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the stories are awesome.
Oh, dude.
And then even some of the young up and comers to hear things they do that maybe we didn't think about. And it's like, wow, like I got to try and incorporate that into what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Or they say something just isn't good for their direction, and you steer them in the right direction. That too.
Yeah.
So all that was like really valuable, all the way down to like just people telling you about a new plugin you might have missed.
Yes.
And
you guys would 100% dork out on that stuff for sure.
I know, yeah.
Dude.
Like
you guys would just talk hours on end about this plugins and like, specific things that are helping.
Yeah.
But they did help though, because I remember like, see, that's the thing is like where you would get the gauge on how useful this was. We would just go into the room, swap meet. Okay, cool. Everyone comes in. We start talking. We had topics and stuff at one point. Like we started getting more specific with it, whatever. Like mixing Mondays and whatever. But overall, but you guys would talk amongst each other, like get the ideas, and then like the next day or two, whatever, we come back or whatever, and it's like, oh, remember that thing? I'm using that now. Like this is part of my entire like mix. Situation.
I learned a lot about business stuff too. Like,
oh, nice.
From Ari Berger, some of the other people that are, in the business side more.
Yeah.
There was so much to learn on that app. It was great, and then they opened the country back up, and we all went back to work.
Dude, it was almost like it was kind of bittersweet because it was cool because outside of like the all the tech talk and all that kind of stuff, like. I remember even like getting off the app a few times, like kind of emotional, because like there'd be like, I think we were all kind of like going through it together, so that's what made it cool. Like on Clubhouse, it's like we're all in this thing together, and they were like very heartfelt conversations too about life and stuff, and I was like, damn, dude, like this just got real deep, artists and their journeys and like things they've gone through, which. Definitely not gonna even speak on some of that stuff, but like it was real stuff. It was like, damn, dude, like
for sure.
I didn't even you always hear about these things, but you don't know, that it's happening or whatever, and there's like weird predatory behaviors, like certain, high ranking or whatever. So it's like, but at the same time, it was like very knowledgeable to like know all the, all the stuff that they basically like people were just talking about. Whether it be music related or just life stuff, it was just cool. I think it was a good moment. I think it was good. Yeah, you're right. It was good for all of us, dude. Like
it was nice because the rooms would start out very like official, and the most amount of people would be there in the beginning, and we would run it like like it was an official thing.
It was a tight ship. Yeah.
2 hours later, as it kind of winded down and people would leave.
Yeah.
Then like. There was a core that would be left over of like 6 to 10 people.
Yeah.
And then it would get a little more buddy and same topics and stuff, but it'd be a little more looser.
Yeah,
and it was cool to have both.
It was, dude. It was. And also too, like the time, it was so crazy because like we talk about the hours we put on that app at the time. It's like I was on the East Coast, you know what I mean? So it was like 4 in the morning or whatever.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, hey, it's like 1 over here in the, you know, West Coast. I'll see you. It's like, damn, dude. We just went so. And then obviously, you know, the more fun situations that wasn't so, you know, like industry talk or anything like that, like technical stuff, was definitely the troll rooms. That was insane.
Troll rooms.
That was insane. We definitely should not have done a few of them. We definitely should not have done a few of those rooms. The COVID
Just gotta
rooms.
blow off
and,
steam, you know.
Dude, the flat Earth one is just that's one of my favorites, dude. That's one of my favorites.
Scientology one.
The Scientology one.
Yeah.
It's so funny, bro. Like we went in there like leaning into that thing, and then people are like, "This isn't right." And you're like, "How do you know?" You know. The flat Earth one is like, "How do you?" Or there was one key's like, "Bro, how do you know that the Earth is flat? Like you have no idea. Like we already have pictures, da da da." And then I would just lean in harder and be like, bro, those pictures are fake. They're from the government. Like, we think it's a round globe, but it's not. It's actually flat, bro. He's like, how do you know? And I'm like, because it's just how it is. That's where the research leads. He's like, but, you know, we have research, we have pictures. And I'm like, how do you know we didn't, you know, where'd you get that picture? Like, who made that picture? I always hit him with this one because this is a hard one to battle. It's like, did you go out there and take the picture? Did you go out there and see the, you know, Earth from far away and take the picture? Oh, no. I'm like, yeah, okay, so what are you telling me then, bro? Like, what are you? And then you do the same thing back to me. I'm like, I don't know, man. All I know is that we are on a flat place, man. That's all I know. Oh, dude, it was so funny getting people riled up. It was so funny. So
people
funny.
take that stuff way too seriously. Sometimes.
Way too serious, dude. Way too serious, which made it so much funnier. We would all go in and just, yeah. So
those are good times.
Those are good times. Those are good days, man.
Especially
Clubhouse days.
during all the stress of COVID. It's
yeah.
It's good to let off steam like that.
Oh,
you know?
dude, it was great, man. I think it was something that we were just there for it, man. I mean, it showed we did it like basically every day.
Yeah.
Basically.
Oh yeah, I mean,
like Monday through Friday at least or something. Like we had.
I would at least check in on the app. Like the cool thing is you open it, and you immediately see your friends.
Yeah.
And who's on or not. So I'd, open it at 3 p.m. I don't see anybody. Close it, and then 8 p.m. open it. Hey, there's somebody. I'll jump in.
Yeah.
While I'm doing this thing that I don't need to listen to the speakers for,
True.
And then like, okay, guys, I gotta go, and
Peace.
You don't go, you just mute your mic, and
yeah. Yeah.
But definitely some wasted time too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Definitely
for sure.
Some of my 8-hour sessions turned into like 14-hour sessions.
Yeah. You have like deadlines looming. You're like, why?
Right.
Why did I just join this room till like 6 a.m?
Right.
What were we doing in there?
Exactly.
And you look back and you're like, we really were doing absolutely nothing.
Right.
And just talking about who knows what at that point. Because once like industry saw me ended, we had like the little after room or whatever. It's like, all right, the room's officially over. Let's jump in over here.
Yeah.
Let's have some fun. Yeah, dude. Clubhouse, man. What an era that was.
Yeah.
What an era that was. Yeah, I mean, so my go-to like for today, because like Clubhouse was big, I wanted them definitely to like know about that. But I guess for me too, because I'm sure in passing we've talked about it, but a little bit about like your beginnings and like audio and stuff. I was doing some research, Bob.
Were you?
And
it's all lies.
It says you went to Berkeley.
I did.
Okay, well ChatGPT 1, Bob 0. It knows you went to Berkeley. Because I've heard that too, like throughout my like like making music and all that kind of stuff. And I had an engineer when I was in Atlanta before like I met Lou and everything. I was like still making music, and he went to Berkeley.
Oh, okay.
And he was like telling me like, oh, this is what it is. So what how did that kind of shape you into what you're doing now as far as Berkeley?
So basically I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I was a musician first, so I started, like when you're a kid and you gotta choose between choir, orchestra, and band, and I chose band, and I was playing the saxophone, and then
nice.
I think around 7th grade, my sister would do this foreign exchange program.
Oh, cool!
And she had an Ecuadorian guy come and live at our house for like a year.
Wow.
And he was a drummer, so I kind of got exposed to everything he was about, and so I was playing piano too, along with saxophone, and then I picked up the drums because of him, and then once I got into high school, I was playing guitar and bass, so I played all these instruments.
You did everything, Bob.
Yeah, and then I had a band almost for like each instrument, so after school, I'd be practicing in those bands, rehearsing up in our attic, not getting any schoolwork done, of course.
Of course.
And then once it got time, like the end of high school, I had been doing sound for my church, like running the church sound and with the little mixers and microphones and stuff. And I recorded our bands a lot, as best I could with the equipment we had. And as I got time to choose what college to go to, I was pretty sure I wanted to go do something music.
For sure.
I really loved it. So I discovered Berkeley, and I had to pick an instrument because you can't go for 5 different instruments. You got to go for one.
Oh, so when you go to Berkeley, you have to basically like specify.
You got to narrow it down.
Wow.
Because most people only play one instrument.
True.
So I went for bass because I really loved bass, and I was told among the Berkeley members, guitar players, there's 1,000 of them.
Right.
Drummers, you're only learning rhythm. You're not learning music, which is not true at Berkeley, but. It was just in my head. I was like, well, I can just play drums by myself on the side. I don't have to go to school for it. And it's like, I don't want to go for piano because that's not rock and roll enough.
I
want to go, and I'll go for bass. So I chose bass. Once I got into Berkeley, the second year you declare your major, and I went for MP&E, which is music production and engineering. So I did bass and music production and engineering together at the same time. And I was in a band in Boston. We toured a little bit in the Northeast, and senior year, I'm like engineering all these projects and having a great time in the studios and all that. And I just had to make the choice. Like, do I want to be a bass player in a band and go down that life, or do I want to be in the studio behind the boards? And I don't know. I just really loved the whole studio environment, like working with different musicians every day. Working with all the equipment. It was like a perfect blend of science and art. So I went the engineering route, went to Nashville for like 3 years.
Yes, which also ChatGPT said you went to Nashville.
Oh, did it?
It did.
GPT.
It knows too much from our Clubhouse conversations.
It knows a lot. But I went to Nashville for 3 years, which is great. Nashville's a great town. And they definitely have like their methods of working and everything. It's very specific. So that was awesome. But back in, 1998, Nashville was very much either country music or Christian rock.
Oh, wow.
Or not Christian rock, but just contemporary Christian music.
Yeah.
So you didn't get a lot of R&B or hip-hop, and you didn't get any like straight-up rock or anything. So I kind of wanted to expand my musical horizons, but I'm glad I went there first because I learned so much. The sessions are so fast. I got to work with like probably 100 different engineers and like see what each guy's doing and kind of take the best from everything. And I also worked in like a bunch of different studios. I didn't get a job at one studio. I worked at like 30 studios.
Wow. I'm sure out there too it's like here, right? Or like LA, it's like studios everywhere.
Yeah, well, it was back then. A bunch closed down.
Yeah, for sure, I'm sure.
After I left, no coinciding with that.
Of course. Bob leaves and then things shut down. I don't know, man.
No, it just changed. They had a whole area named Music Row, which was it was like studios, publishing companies, record labels, and unfortunately, they kind of like redeveloped that area, and a lot of things closed and spread out. So it's a lot different nowadays. But anyways, I wanted to kind of come out to LA and be in the mix of more genres of music. And so that's exactly what I did. I came out in 2001, and I I just kind of did my own engineering thing for the first couple of years, and worked with anyone I could. And then eventually I met this guy. His nickname was Nephew. His name is Theron Feemster, and he worked with Dr. Dre a lot. He worked on he produced In the Club, If I Can't, Business for Eminem. Like he was a part of a lot of those records with Dre, and he kind of was becoming his own producer and starting a production company with his manager. So I joined that. I became their day-to-day engineer, and that was a great thing as a young engineer because I didn't have to worry about getting a gig because he got the gig.
Yeah.
So I just rode his coattails, and I worked on all these big records. And as long as I held my own as an engineer,
of course,
I got to be on all these records with him. So we did that for 5 years, and probably, I think at the end we had a hard drive of like 1,500 instrumentals.
Dang.
And probably a couple hundred finished songs.
Jesus.
And, yeah, it was great, man. Just watching him create too, I learned a lot about production.
Yeah,
You know,
I bet.
and so that was a great journey. And then I think around '07, kind of split the production company and all went our separate ways. And I just kind of went back to being a freelance. And yeah, and then a couple years later started Echo Bar Recording Studios with my friend Eric, and we had that place for like 12 years.
Dude, awesome place.
Thanks, man.
So awesome.
That was a great era too. You know, just owning my own large facility.
Dude.
And
I mean, that's how I kind of like, you know, when we first like met, like that's how I walk in and I'm like, whoa, that's like the first time I see like a cool ass studio. I'm like, yo, this is cool.
Yeah, it was a blast, man. Like there's so much music in this town. There's so many different genres, so many different artist types, and so much you can get into. So having a facility just kind of opens those doors for more possibilities.
Yeah.
You know? And you know, I did a lot of tracking and just I think around 2013 just kind of decided I wanted to focus like 90% on mixing. And just kind of rode with that until now. And year and a half ago, 2 years, we sold the studio.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of the new era. Like a lot of mix engineers have moved home.
Yeah.
And they're not shelling out the big bucks for large facilities where nobody shows up.
Basically,
because so many people work over like email now, and it's just technology has allowed us to condense things.
Yeah.
You know, so as long as you produce exceptional results, you have a place you can work that is professional and, you know, quiet and no distractions. That's all you need.
Yeah, that's exactly. Even like obviously coming here is a beautiful setup. I mean,
thank you.
It's just I mean, you start to see that too, like a few years back, and it's like I think even like during pandemic, like through those times and like seeing
that
like,
triggered it. I think.
For sure, right? I mean, I'm sure that started the whole like snowball effect because it was like people were just like at home, like making music in like closets, and they're in the top 10, and you're like, wow.
During that time, I had so many calls from artists and songwriters that were like, hey man, I finally need a home setup. Tell me what mic to buy. And like, should I use Pro Tools? What software should I use? Should I use Logic? And I would just help people get a setup for their home. And then you start getting the records, and it's like, I made it at home because I couldn't book a studio. Everybody's locked down.
Yeah.
So,
that's actually interesting. When I'm gonna branch off on a question on that note because I have an artist that I work with, and basically he's much more an artist, and he's very he just makes music, you know what I mean, basically. But I guess he's trying to find ways to like be more like efficient when it comes to like making music and stuff. But the thing is, he's not like a engineer by any means. He's just an artist,
Yeah.
But what would be like a good simple that someone can like watch a few YouTube videos on and learn it, and just have like a very simple, like just to record some vocals, basically?
I mean, there might be some videos out there. Probably find something on YouTube, but what would be the most helpful is to find someone that has a similar setup or really close to what you have and what he has, this artist, and basically help them set up a template and a method, a streamline.
Yeah.
So every day you're going to record, you got your 2-track beat or whatever you're going to record to, you put that into this empty session, and it's a template. And then here's your mic and your reverb and your auto-tune and your delay. Like set up a template, and then just spend like one day just having that guy show the artist the flow.
Yeah.
Of like, this is how you're going to record every time you're ready. And then show them like where to store their music, where to put it on the computer. And then that way everything will just be streamlined and easy. And it's not quite one click, but it'll be set up enough to where it's the easiest it can be for them.
Okay, yeah.
And all artists, I mean, if they're doing their own recording, they got to learn enough engineering to make a good recording. You got to know how to set up the mic, how not to distort the mic pre, and not plug it in wrong, stuff like that. And then just like with all creatives, it's like most likely you're gonna want to branch out, whether it's like you have a guitar player friend, now he wants to join in. How do you record that guitar?
Yeah.
So it's once you go down that rabbit hole, it becomes a rabbit hole.
Of course.
And next thing you know, 3 years later, you're engineering.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah, and that's because I'm gonna start to put him on game because like I'm flying. He's in Atlanta, so I'm gonna start like I've been flying out to do content for him and stuff. So shout out Timothy Mack. I think we know Timothy Mack. I'm not sure if you met him before, but you've probably seen him on my stuff. I just repost him, but we shot his last video, and it's doing very well. But yeah, he's kind of like in that moment now where he's like, I should just, and I'm like, you know what? Let's get you set up, you know.
Yeah.
And I think even B-Star told me that too from like a while ago because B-Star has been part of like my journey with him as well, and he's like told him very early on, like if you can just get a little setup, something simple, dude, you're good to go.
Yep.
You cut that cost for tracking, and then you just get someone to mix it, and then let's just keep going. And then you know, as far as like efficiency of recording, if he has an idea, it's like boom, record, boom.
Yeah.
Like,
the thing is that there's so many products out there.
Yeah, I know.
For people. And I mean, you can get lost in it, but at the same time, you can make it super easy. Like they have microphones now that instead of having a cable that goes to a mic pre into an interface, they'll have it where it's just straight USB off the mic. So you just go right to the program.
Wow.
You know, it's that easy. And it may not be as good sounding as the mic that you plug into a mic pre and have,
right.
You know, so. But it's steps. It's like as you learn, you get the better equipment.
True.
You know, it's kind of the natural progression. You know.
For sure. Yeah, and I guess that's pertaining to someone who like doesn't do this, so they can kind of follow those steps, and then as they get better, they'll start to expand the setup.
Exactly.
True. Okay. It's definitely a mission, statement I'm on right now. So I'm gonna take that and use that, Bob.
Yeah, man.
And I've been told before. Shout out B-Star. You've told me this before. I know you told me this hundreds of times. I'm just getting it reaffirmed by Bob now. So now that Bob's reaffirmed that idea, now I believe it. Before, I didn't believe it when you said it. He was laughing behind the camera.
He's offended.
He's not. He's fine. He's fine. All right. So before I get into questions from ChatGPT, which these are great, there's one last thing I want to do. Because this I don't know if this. I'm hoping. I don't know if this.
Did you say ChatGPT? What questions should I ask Bob Horn?
So basically, because it knows. So this is my thinking right behind it. It's ChatGPT is obviously getting research from obviously online. So I think once I asked it to specify which Bob Horn it was, then they knew it was you because they said this is him. This is like what he's done. And he's worked with, and I'm like that's definitely you. But then now it's more like. Because I was telling B, I was like, I wanted to structure the pods a little more and like have questions and stuff. Because we had a conversation on the way here in the car, which is because he's basically like, you're inspired by the comedic podcasts, you know, like that's just because that's what you consume. You like comedy, like, and you watch all those guys' podcasts, whatever guys and girls podcasts. But you know, but he's like, but the problem with that is for your podcast is like they're coming there for like funny, for comedy, and there's not really a structure to that because they just kind of hook some mics up and they just start going to work and start saying dumb stuff and you know that's why people are there. So like I'm thinking like, oh, I want to like do something like that, but it's like, but I'm not like a comic or anything. I'm not saying I am or I'm gonna do it or whatever. I'm just saying I enjoy to watch comedy podcasts. That's all I'm saying. And so they've inspired me to do my own podcast. So that's kind of something.
Yeah.
Sure. But so I wanted to structure. So I asked it. So I'm like, let me get some cool questions. So basically, ChatGPT, Bob Horn, it knows it's you.
Yeah.
I specify it knows it's you. But then I'm more of like, well, let's get some conversations to like clip out on socials and stuff. So you're gonna ask you kind of questions and then that's like the whole idea behind the actual. Because if it was me and not having like a B-Star behind me, I would have just been like, "What's up, Bob? What'd you eat today?"
Right.
You know what I mean? But now that it's like, let's get some questions. Let's make it worth someone else's time to like.
Gotcha.
Not just listen to my dumbass speak. You, of course, Bob. Everyone wants to listen to you, but yeah. So I did have some questions, but before I get into that, there's one thing I saw online, and I want to know if either they're trolling you or this is you, and I want to know why. There's a nickname online.
A nickname?
Could you guess a nickname?
No.
No nickname that you potentially got.
I've had a zillion nicknames over the year, but the one that made it into credits on albums was the Builder.
Jesus Christ, bro. ChatGPT's getting scary, dude. ChatGPT's getting scary, dude. Bob the Builder.
Bob the Builder.
That's insane, dude. That's exactly. I'm gonna just to prove it to everybody. It's in my notes.
Wow. So,
what is Bob the Builder? That's hilarious.
When I worked with Nephew,
okay,
that was 2003 to 2007, and the production team, we probably had like, I don't know, like four core people, but kind of branched out to like 8 people that hung around us all the time.
Yeah.
And whatever they would say, Bob, I think it was just natural. You know, these people, you know, they might have a kid or whatever. They started calling me Bob the Builder.
That's
and,
so funny.
You know, it's like you're in the studio, you're crafting tracks, you're building stuff.
Yeah.
You're putting it all together, you're mixing stuff. So Bob the Builder just became like the nickname from that crew.
Oh
and then
God.
they started putting it on credits. So like,
I know. I saw that on the credits. It said Bob the Builder Horn. I'm like, there's no way this is real.
Right. So yeah, sometimes it was just the Builder in between Bob and Horn. Other time, which was the right way.
Yeah.
Other times it was Bob the Builder.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like it took me like a year or 2 to embrace it and be like, yeah, it's fine. And
Bob didn't like that.
Those
he
cases,
didn't like that.
Those cases right there.
These here?
The lids, which are in my garage, they say the Builder.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's so good, dude.
That was, and some people just knew me as the Builder.
Yeah.
You know, and especially in the hip hop world.
Of course.
You know,
hip hop loves nicknames.
Yeah. So yeah, that was like my early LA days.
That's so funny,
nickname.
Dude. That's hilarious. I'm gonna definitely on this clip put the little bodybuilder little picture as we're talking about it.
Nice,
it's gonna be awesome, dude. Bob, I don't mean to put you out, but we gotta do it, bro. We're in a clip economy now, okay? So I have to get clips out that make sense, that are gonna get us views.
All right.
Okay? If it means exploiting you for a little bit, I'm sorry, bro.
Clickbait.
I'm sorry, man. All right, so where are we at time wise?
39 minutes.
Okay, definitely gonna get into questions now. Okay, so ChatGPT, appreciate your assistance. There are some questions here that I'm gonna ask. I'm gonna see 39. Okay, we should be good. All right, so basically the first few are just kind of like you'll kind of get the vibe on them. They're kind of like just very overall kind of questions, general.
Okay.
I don't want to be like a poser to some of the guys that are like engineers that are doing podcasts, like because I'm not in any way like in that vibe anymore. I'm more like content person. But even though with B-Star, whenever we record, I still get behind the chair and track them and still have fun with it. He knows that I like to track because it's just fun, It's like do like this. I just love that energy. But so there are a couple technical questions, kind of like nitty gritty stuff, but those I'll leave for the last part. But you ready for this?
Yeah. Hit
nice. Me. So, looking back on your career, can you share a moment or project that significantly influenced your approach to audio engineering? Yeah, these are kind of
I mean, almost every one of them influences how my career moves forward. But just because you learn stuff with every new artist. I always say I learn from the artists I work with, especially mixing. But things like working with Michael Jackson and having him asking Nephew and I to mic up a door so he can knock on it and layer that with a kick drum. It's like you learn so much from session to session. But I think the biggest thing that stands out was probably 2004. I did mixing for and recording for Mario, our R&B singer. Mm-hmm. And I had very good mix. The A&R really liked it. All the vocals were layered nicely and sounded great, but it didn't have a big deep low end to the record, and I just hadn't learned the magic of that yet. And it was I ended up losing the mix that year.
Wow.
I mean, back then, and it went to Manny Marroquin, he's been on top for decades.
Mm-hmm.
So I humbled myself and I went. They said it was going to go to Manny, and I took the file to Manny myself. I was like, okay, I lost this mix, but hey, Mr. Manny, do you mind listening to my mix and telling me what you think is wrong with it? And the only thing he told me was like, yeah, it lacks low-end depth, but everything else is great. And that, he probably didn't even remember that moment.
Yeah.
For me, that sent me down the rabbit hole to learn
low-end
sub-frequencies, low-end. And so for the next few years, I bought 2 subwoofers. I carried them with me.
You turned into a bass head.
I turned into a bass head.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of records out there in like the 05, 06, 07 that just have so much kick drum and so much bass. I just went down head first.
Yeah.
I'm gonna learn that, so I don't lose another mix in the future.
That is insane though. The low end part of it is insane because I feel like whenever I've like in the audio engineering like journey, as far as like when I was doing it and like kind of just working with artists and stuff, like and speaking with people in the industry, like there are a few things that people always talk about when it comes to like production, and at least for me that I stuck out for me, it's always the drums and the low end.
Yeah,
those are like the two, whether it be like for the drums like patterns and like how you sequence and produce it, and then low end on like how did you do that.
Well, and you gotta remember we're talking about 2003 to 6.
Yeah.
The plugins and the processing power we have now, we didn't have back then.
Nuts.
So we had straight up EQs on the SSL.
Yeah.
Our plugin EQs were like minimal, like just a few companies, Waves, McDSP, and the stock Digidesign. It wasn't even Avid Pro Tools; it was Digidesign Pro Tools back then.
That's way back.
So we had to craft that low end with pure EQ skills and the source material, whatever, however good the bass or the kick was that the producer gave us. We didn't have all the tricks we have nowadays, So it was a lot more difficult. But, that one loss sent me down that rabbit hole of just discovering how to master low end. And then it kind of became one of the things I was known for over the years.
Yeah.
So even though that was a loss, it turned into be one of the greatest things.
Yeah. That was a big moment for you. Like it shifted the way you're basically going to start working on records like for the years to come. Dope. That's a dope one, dude. That's a great answer, Bob. It's pretty cool. Low end guy. Just so you guys know, his nickname is Malibu Bobby. Like we really were out here in these Malibu mountains driving crazy. Okay? This guy, smooth criminal, this guy. Okay. What are some common misconceptions about the role of an audio engineer in the creative process, and how do you navigate those in your work?
Common misconceptions. I rarely have to navigate those in my work, and that's just because of typically the people that hire me know exactly what I do, and they're hiring me exactly for that. But that does definitely exist, and I know a lot of people run into it where the engineer, I think in most part, it would be a situation where the engineer is expected to do more than he should. And on one hand, if you want to stay valuable to people and you want them to call you again, being able to be flexible and wear many hats and do anything you're asked is important. But at the same time, in the typical, what is a recording engineer, what is a mix engineer, there's things that are defined, and at least from a starting point, it should be recognized that, a recording engineer shouldn't be producing your vocals unless you've talked to him about it and asked him if it's a skill he possesses and you recognize that he's good at it, he or she. And, but like just to have an engineer all of a sudden producing the track and everything, it's up to that guy how far he wants to take it before he feels like he's getting taken advantage of. Right. Some guys like me, like if the artist wants me to sit behind the board, record, but then tell them when things could be better, I'm all for that, because I want the best record possible. So I'm not going to be resistant to it. But some people will feel like, man, I'm not getting paid for this extra stuff, In mixing, maybe there's one little one I could give an example of. It's like tuning the vocals, just being expected that's part of mixing. It's really not. Like so many people will send the track back like, hey, you need to tune your vocals before you give it to me as a mixer. And other guys will be like, hey, that's my job. I have to make it sound good, and it's out of tune, so I'm going to put it in tune, So it depends what attitude you have with it, but same right as a producer, you shouldn't expect him to be able to play every instrument. So if you want violins on your production, you shouldn't expect that he knows how to play violin. He might have to hire someone, and you as the artist might need to pay for that.
Right.
So I think just misconceptions, I don't think there's too many, but I think one of the biggest ones that people run into is expecting engineers to also be the producer. And a lot of times that happens with the people that get their beats off of YouTube or BeatStars or one of those websites. And
they're asked to basically like add and like try to
and
create.
they take it into the studio.
Yeah.
And there's no producer, so the role of producer falls on the engineer.
Right.
And sometimes that's okay. I think it's just a conversation you have to have up front. Is like, are you okay with being my producer today?
Yeah.
Since there is no producer, and if he's not, you kind of got to respect that, you know.
Yeah, and that basic because that I mean, I'm sure for the paperwork that gets a little muddy. You know,
it
like
can,
crediting and
but as long as everybody's honest and upfront,
yeah, yeah.
You know, the worst thing to do is to go forward with a session doing something that you know you're never going to get paid for.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if you produce a whole. I've seen engineers pull down samples from Splice and start creating a whole beat. And at the end of the session, there's a production, but there's no producer, and there's no producer on the split sheets. So the artist is getting 100%. But that dude just made your track for you, and you gave him his whatever per hour
right
engineering fee.
No percentages, no nothing.
So yeah, I mean, some people just have to define the lines, and then there won't be any misconceptions.
Yeah,
you know.
My thing is too is like one day I hope, man, because it's like also too it's like it almost feels like it comes down to like. I guess that's business too, right? Having the conversation or whatever. I get that. But it seems a little like
it's weird because you're in a creative environment. You want the vibes to be good.
Yeah.
You don't want to talk about business because people get weird. It's like, hey man, I feel like you have me play that guitar part, but that guitar part became the hook, and that's the melody you're singing. So I basically co-wrote the hook with you.
Right.
Can I get 10%? And sometimes when you jump into those conversations, it's like the cool vibe we just had in the studio
it's over.
Has gone.
Yeah.
And depending on that guy's vibe, the reciprocation is like, yeah, of course, man, you definitely deserve 10%. Or is he like, man, I'm the artist, it's all mine. It's
so you got to talk to these people, and
it can definitely ruin the vibes of a recording session. So some people never want to bring it up, and then they wait a week to where everybody's at home and they call like, hey man, I wrote that hook, and then it's
a whole other thing.
It's a whole different thing, you know.
Such a weird way to navigate that.
That's why managers exist.
Oh, okay, true. Yeah, that's right. The managers do get in there and fight.
Right, but they allow you to remain the cool guy in the studio.
Yeah.
With the good attitude.
The buffer. You're the buffer. The manager's the buffer.
Right, but the thing is, when can you have a manager? You can't always have a manager in those early days, you know.
Yeah, you're kind of fighting and clawing at that point.
That's why we call the music business the Wild West, because you're just kind of on your own until you're not, you know.
Yeah. And then I guess before I get to the next one, that was interesting. You said the tuning. So tuning vocals is not part of mixing.
Well, it is and it isn't. It's like, it depends on the person. Like, I don't consider it part of mixing. As far as like, if you give me a pop song and it's got 20, 30 vocals and all of them are untuned, and they don't want auto-tune slapped on it. They want Melodyne, go in there
note by note
6-8 hours and tune it perfectly. You know, that's not part of mixing. That should have been done with the production. The other flip side of that is, even when it is easy with like auto-tune, some artists have very specific auto-tune settings that go with their taste. So if you leave it blank and ask me to do it, I might do what I think sounds good, but the artist might hate it because it's not their auto-tune settings. So I think a lot of pro mixers, we just want all the tuning to be done and baked in.
Yeah, true.
So that it's been signed off on, the producer's happy, the artist's happy, the manager's happy. Now it comes to the mix, and it's not about the tuning. Because half these people don't show up to the mix. We're working over email, so they're not over my shoulder being like, oh, put the retune speed a little higher, you know. So they're going to get the mix, and I want people to be blown away on mix one when they first receive it. I don't want them to be like, man, this auto-tune setting is wrong on the first mix, because now they're not happy. They're not listening to how good the track is banging. They're listening to the auto-tune being wrong.
Right.
So I just kind of request that all tuning has been taken care of when I get it. Now, if I'm mixing a song and it has been taken care of, but there's one thing they missed that's just like a little auto-tune, I'll grab that real quick and fix it, and I don't have any attitude about it.
Right.
But there's a reason. It's not that I don't want to do the work. It's that, number one, it takes me out of the mixing process, out of my mixing brain. It's tedious work, and it's like you want your mix done, and like the same day I tell you it's going to be done. You don't, if I have to spend another 6 hours melodyning your vocals, and I've taken myself out of the spirit of the mix, and I don't get it done that day because you left all this extra work for me.
Yeah, it's not. It's just it's a couple different things that kind of like take you out of the mix.
Yeah. So what I would do is I would tell people, have your tuning done, and then some of them sometimes they'd be like, oh well, do you do tuning? And that's when I'd say like, yeah, like if you wanna, I'll do it on a different day where it's not part of the mix, so I don't have to be in that mindset. And in fact, I might ask you to hire my assistant to do it, give him a couple $100 to do it, and that way I've helped him get another gig.
Yeah.
And then it's not part of the mix.
Yes. So you're kind of just in your vibe.
Yeah.
That's why I've seen that too with like Dave and like Nico and like how they, because that's kind of where when I kind of linked back up with Nico, he was with Dave, but yeah, I like that system that you guys do. It's pretty cool. Like you guys have the assistant. You guys kind of like just tell them, you show them whatever it is that you show them and like all the tricks and stuff, and then they kind of utilize it. So I do like that part of it where it's like we can have that done by this person who's on my team,
right?
And then the big dog comes in and takes care of it.
Yep.
Takes care of the rest.
Yep.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah, I mean, and it really is a question of how much. Like if an artist that I'm just like super excited to work with, and they left one untuned vocal, and it's gonna take me 10 minutes to do it, I'm not gonna throw up a fit and
yeah. If something like of course,
I'm just gonna go ahead and do it.
Of course.
Be the team player,
right? Of course.
But if they send me a track and it's like, man, this is gonna be a whole day of melodyne, auto tune, and vocal line, and they have all these vocals. It's like 100 vocals for a K-pop song, and none of them are in tune. It's like, dude, that's a day of work.
Yeah.
That we didn't talk about paying me for.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna have a day of mixing.
Yeah.
So it's like at this point, it's like you gotta sick the manager on them.
I got it. Okay. So there's a time and place for that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's pretty sick. I like that. Where we at time wise? 54 minutes. Damn. Okay. I might bring it down to maybe one more of the questions, and then maybe like a technical or two, and then probably done by then. We've just been having such a good time, Bob. You know? Keep these things at like 45, but yeah. I'm almost thinking like we kind of should just kind of keep whatever, right? Like
whatever.
Let's just run it. Okay. Got you. And it goes quick too, man.
Yeah.
40 minutes. I'm like, geez, we're at an hour almost. All right, I'll hit the next one. So I would actually, there's just two more here, and then I'm going to get to the technical stuff. But basically, I'll get on with this one. Can you walk us through your process of collaborating with high-level artists, big artists, in this case specifically Michael Jackson, because that's what he actually prompted, which I like that. How do you balance their vision with your expertise?
Well, so with Michael Jackson, I never mixed for him. That was That was recording.
Got it. Tracking. Okay.
So, as a recording engineer, my view of a recording engineer is try to never have to say no. Like, no, we can't do that. Like if they want to sledgehammer the control room window to get a glass break sound, you say no. But in the most part, try never to say no. So have the expertise to do whatever they're doing or learn it really quick.
Yeah.
So know all the gear that they could possibly ask you to operate and be ready, So, and be accommodating. It's like they're trying to export their musical vision, their idea out of themselves, and they need you to capture it. So don't get in the way of that.
Yeah.
And make sure that they feel good while doing it, whether could be anything from the lighting in the studio to just like not being too ice cold with the air conditioner, like having a good vibe in the room, having a good personality, like not being a bump in the log or someone that's got a bad attitude, doesn't seem to want to be there, So you get out of the way of their vision, and if you can enhance it along the way, even better. So but you got to know the person you're working for. So if I'm engineering and there's something that I can do to help enhance an idea, knowing, okay, was this the right type of person to receive that well, and is this a good time? So there's some psychology that goes into it. So it's like, hey man, what do you think of this? And I put a crazy delay effect, weird thing on their vocal, and it's like they hate it, like, oh, okay, cool, and get rid of it right away, or they love it, like, oh yeah, cool, and it's like, no, points for Bobby, But
Bobby getting those points.
you gotta be able to read the room and the people,
Yes,
and not step on toes. It's like if there's a producer and an artist, you don't trash talk the beat or say something that brings the producer down, because now he's gonna make sure you're never on one of his sessions again.
Yeah,
which means you're not gonna work with that artist again. It's like you gotta. I think awareness is probably the big word.
Yeah. That's what I'm getting out of this, which is like, dude, please, like, and people do make these decisions, like in some situations, we've been in. People have made some decisions, and I'm just like, why?
Dude,
like,
people lose gigs. I've seen people. There's one conversation, 2010. Well, I'm mixing. Well, actually, I shouldn't even say. But I'm mixing for an artist, and behind me on the couch is an A&R, another executive, and the current producer I'm working with. And I heard another producer get a gig and lose that same gig in 30 seconds, just from their conversation. So the power of people's words, and the power of people's words during a studio. If you trash talk something going on with the studio, it could be the studio itself.
Yeah.
But if you trash talk something, you could cost someone $30,000, or you could cost someone, a weekend of money, or a week of money, or a month of money.
Yeah.
You could cause an artist to never come back again.
That's
to that studio, or never work with that producer again because of something you said that just caused a loss of confidence.
Right. It is very, like, that's one thing too I'm gonna get out of this convo too, which is like reinforcing that idea, which is like a lot of this is like psychology and like just learning how to read people and just kind of like read the room and just kind of because some of those rooms I have been in that were like big artists and stuff, I've definitely always like
and
had a lot of
if you're unsure, stay quiet.
Basically, yeah, right. It's like
that's why when assistants work at big studios, the first thing they tell them is keep your mouth shut until you're asked a question.
Yeah.
And if you're asked a musical opinion question, be very careful.
Yeah.
Err on the side of you love everything, even if it's fake. Because if someone else hates something and it seems to be the general consensus, and then you want to say like, yeah, it's not my favorite either, that's safe.
Yeah.
But if everyone's like, I love this, don't be the assistant that's like, it sucks.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna ruin the vibe.
You're gonna get ousted.
That song may not get finished now because of what you just said.
That's
one comment.
Crazy, dude. That's insane. That's awesome. I'm gonna get into another one here. What do we got? Some really good ones. All right, this is probably a good one to end like the kind of chill vibes and then get some technical stuff. But
okay,
what advice would you give to an aspiring audio engineer trying to carve their niche in such a competitive field?
Flexibility. Knowing, all the different programs out there, Ableton, Logic, Pro Tools. The more you can know, the more valuable you are, and because, like, take this city. It's like we're in Los Angeles. Well, we're not at the moment, but in Los Angeles, you can be tracking one day, doing a mix for a TV show the next day. Someone might ask you to do an Atmos mix. So do you know about Atmos and surround sound?
Right.
Someone might ask you to comp vocals, which is more of a production thing. But engineers might get asked, like, hey, I have these 8 vocal takes. Can you comp the best lyrics out of each take? And it's like, okay, well, did I learn that skill? So learning, Beat Detective and Pro Tools, like taking a live drum kit and locking it to the grid, sample replacing. It's like all these little things that can be done. Do you know how to time stretch a track, like change the BPM of an already recorded production? Do you know MIDI?
Yeah.
Like, could you set up a studio? I have My old assistant, one of his extra skills that he does on the side is wiring studios for people.
Wow.
Integration, like patch bay layout,
Yeah,
and all
yeah,
that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like the more of that stuff the more valuable you will be. The less you'll have to rely on other people, and the more times you can say yes, which is always the goal.
Yeah. Huge. I mean, huge. Just, learning the craft, study, research.
And I mean, man, if you can add musicality into that, like learn an instrument if you don't already. If you do know an instrument, keep up with it.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
learn all your chords, like be part of the musical conversation. I can remember times back in Nashville, my early days, where a guitar player would have an out of tune guitar,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't just tell him his guitar's out of tune. But hey, man, your B string's a little flat, and just even though I was a little show offy,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
people were like, okay, he's paying attention.
He knows his stuff.
He knows his shit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like
and,
that.
And he was right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And he was right. That's the big thing too, is like saying the thing, but like also getting the thing right.
Sure.
Knowing what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's sick, dude. That's so sick. Yeah, man. I mean, these are, I guess, a little more technical to you. And I wanted to kind of like, I was talking to B on the way here, like, obviously it's like conversation between you and me, so we're cool. We're gonna have cool combos, but I also want to get some like technical stuff out for the audio community, so they can kind of like get a benefit of the Bob Horn mindset,
sure,
and being great. Because if you don't listen to this podcast and you don't use Bob Horn's advice, you're not gonna get very far in this place. So just understand that, audio engineers, aspiring audio engineers. Okay, what are your go-to plugins for mixing and mastering, and what specific features do you find most useful in them? And I know these are like vague, but
yeah. Man, the funny thing about plugins is it's never ending. Like there's a new plugin every week, or 10,
Yeah.
And we have thousands of them. And me personally, I buy most of them because I receive sessions from people, and I hate when I get a session and a plugin comes up blank that
inactive,
I don't own.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just like a little EQ that I'm gonna redo anyways. Other times it's like an important effect, and I don't know what that was, so I go buy it. So
wow.
Like, oh yeah, that's important. They don't want me to redo that. They want to keep that.
Wow.
So I invest in a lot of the plugins, and there's got to be like 2,000 now on my system.
Wow.
But there's probably, I think it's around 50 or 60 that I use regularly.
All the time.
Yeah, all the time. And then the other ones are kind of like, oh, if someone else used it and I liked it and I want to keep it, cool. Or if I'm just one day I'm like, man, I want something new and different. Let me go see what I haven't used in a while. But otherwise,
nice.
There's about 50 or 60. And, man, like stuff from Valhalla, Fab Filter, those two companies are great. McDSP, Make Believe, our friends Rick.
Shout out.
They're some of my favorite plugins, the Make Believe plugins and the Metric Halo channel strip. Gold Clip and Orange Clip by Swab Digital. Those are fantastic. Isotope Ozone 11 is invaluable. So many great ones. I'm looking over at my screen right now, trying like it's
sessions are up and running around here. People just know that.
Yeah, it's just so many, man. It's like a blur, but
yeah,
there's a lot of great ones,
Is there, so within the I'm wondering too, like within the 50, are those basically those are like can't live without?
Kind of, yeah.
Can't live without.
I mean, if I went to another studio with a rig and they didn't have them, I would apply my same mental techniques to those. But some things are special, like like the Gold Clip or Ozone 11, like has special processes in it. Or like some of the things I use the Make Believe plugins for, they sound a certain way, which other plugins don't have that sound. The Mixwave stuff. Mixwave's a great company. Their plugins are phenomenal. They're kind of new to me, but their plugins have a specific sound, and that's kind of how I engineer when I pull up a track. Let's say it's a guitar, and I hear, okay, that's what the guitar is. What's my finish line? What do I want it to sound like? And maybe it's exactly how it is, and I use no plugins. Or other times I'll hear this finish line. It's like, okay, I'm going to achieve that with this Mixwave plugin, Soothe by OEK, and this plugin, and those three are gonna get me there. So I put them on, and a lot of times I'm right. Other times I gotta experiment a little.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I hear a sound and then hear a finish line, and then think in my head what it takes to get there, and then that's what I do. So those plugins get very specific to me. If I had to change them, it would just become a little more experimental.
Just to kind of catch your flow again and get where you like to be.
Yeah.
Sick. Very nice. Very, very nice. We got here. Okay, so basically it's kind of these are all kind of like in the same like the same realm, the same vibe. How do you choose? Let me say that again. How do you choose between different types of plugins for tasks like EQ, compression, and reverb? Are there any particular brands or models you prefer? Which is basically kind of what we were just discussing.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like I said before. Like if I pull up a piano and I hear the way the attack of the notes sound, and let's say I want to change that with compression, it'll usually pop into my head like, okay, what's gonna get me there? Is it gonna be like a slow Neve style compressor? Is it gonna be something fast and like what they call hard knee, very punchy like an API compressor? So I'll hear in my head what I want to change, and then that'll kind of give me this list in my head of like, okay, what plugins do that and which ones don't, so I can kind of separate them. Like, okay, well, I think this one will do the job. Let me choose that and mess with it. So it's basically just off of the source material. So like I don't have a piano compressor that I use every time on every piano. There's no such thing to me, because one piano will be thin and bright and really hard and punchy, and it'll need this plugin, and another piano will be warm and dark and soft, and there's no attack and no clarity, so it needs a lot of work with a whole different plugin or multiple plugins, you know? And that's the way all sounds are. It's like they're not. I like people ask me, "Hey, what's your vocal chain?" Well, yesterday it was these 5 plugins.
Exactly, yesterday.
Today it's these 3.
Yeah.
And tomorrow I'm mixing this guy with a weird scratchy voice, and it's going to be these 12 plugins.
Right.
You know.
Right. That's the crazy part about it too. Is like it's just like, and I think that's what it comes down to too with this kind of talk and like getting like nitty gritty with all the plugins. It's like it's just never gonna be the same setup.
No,
ever.
I mean, I know guys that they will force their vocal chain on every single vocal, and it'll work for them, and they swear by it. It doesn't work for me. I've never thought that way. Every time they have a kick drum, they're using the same plugins on it. I might try the same plugins on every kick drum, but as soon as it doesn't do exactly what I want it to do, I'm switching stuff out.
You're looking for the next
So
thing.
I have my go-to stuff, for kick and snare and bass, but the moment it doesn't work because it's a different bass than what typically works with that chain, I'm changing it out. No hesitating. Just okay. Well, that's kind of working, but let's save this. Let's duplicate. Try the whole thing over with different plugins. And it's like what do my buddies use? Like, let me try what they're doing. Like, what is Eric? What is Dave Pensato? What is my buddy Omar? What does he put on bass? I might even call them. Like,
yeah.
Get some other friendly advice.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool calling the guys too on the boys. Call the boys up, see what you got. Like, what are you guys using?
Yeah, sometimes you slide them a file, be like, is that bass too boomy? What do you think?
What are you thinking, boys? How you feeling about it?
Right.
That's so sick, dude. Having that community too is cool. I like that too. Love having that. All right. I have one last one for you. This is actually a good way to end it too with the plug-in talk, but can you share any lesser known plugins that you feel have significantly improved your workflow or sound quality? So I guess things that are not really, top of mind or.
Well, I'll give you one for workflow.
Nice.
Because there's not a lot of things that fall into that category because our workflow just adapts.
Yeah, per situation.
That, and then as the DAWs and the plugins have their own life over 5-10 years, we just adapt slowly with it, so we don't notice something that's just instant workflow change. Like Isotope Ozone 11 might be something where it's like, okay, that saves me a lot of time because there's so much in one plugin. I don't have to have 10 plugins, you know. So maybe that, but bigger than that workflow wise, I'd say SoundFlow. SoundFlow is a script editor. At least I think that's what it is. But it basically, it's one button pushes that can do many commands. So you hit a button and it'll take a stereo track, split it into 2 monos, delete one side, pan the left one up the middle, and hide the stereo one. And you do that, like if you have a stereo track that's really not stereo, it's actually mono, and you don't want to waste, you know.
Right.
You just want to cut it down to one mono track. So that would take me like 4 or 5 steps doing it manually. SoundFlow, you have an iPad and you have a button to be like split the mono. So you highlight the track you want to split the mono, hit that one button, and it's done.
It just does everything.
Yeah.
That's
and
sick.
You can literally program anything. You can bounce stems. You can label stuff. You could order a burrito, no joke, and pay for it with a stored credit card.
Wow.
Like anything you can do with the mouse and keyboard,
yeah,
you can program SoundFlow to do.
Wow.
So guys like, you know, Baines.
Yeah, of
and
course.
Baines is a heavy SoundFlow user. But there's all these like one button things you can do that will take care of a 6-key command.
Yeah,
you know?
into one.
So for workflow, big shout out to SoundFlow for that.
Hell yeah.
Just
huge.
having your favorite, like I mentioned, the reason I know it's 50 or 60 plugins that are my go-tos is because my SoundFlow is a big window of those plugins.
Yeah.
So if I want Fab Filter Pro Q3 on a track, I just hit that Pro Q icon and it just puts it on the track for me.
That's sick.
So that's a big one for workflow. But otherwise, state the question one more time.
Basically, like any like lesser known.
Oh, lesser known.
Yeah, lesser known plugins. That
sound quality. That was the other half
right.
of it. So, sound quality wise, I want to shout out Mixwave because Mixwave is a company they're just nailing plugins and they're releasing a pretty high frequency in a short amount of time. They have a Hazel Rig preamp EQ, which they nailed it. That thing sounds phenomenal. They have this coil preamp. It's a very vintage, warm sounding preamp, and they modeled that, and that thing has really become integrated into my workflow. When I want stuff to sound extra analog, I use that. So that definitely has affected my sound quality for the better.
That's sick.
And they just released a new stay level compressor, the Gates stay level, and everyone's flipping out over that. They have one of the best bass amp simulators, and sound quality wise, that, and then Make Believe. Shout out to Rick again. His plugins, mostly he's got 2 EQs, a channel strip, and another one I can't talk about that's on the way in beta, but they have a sonic character to all of his plugins that isn't. It's not that it's not normal. It's just something new, and it's very subtle. But when you use 50 of them in your song, it makes a sonic stamp.
Yeah, for sure.
And I identify with that sonic stamp.
Nice.
So I've integrated that into my sound. So Mixwave and Make Believe, like they're both a big part of my sound in the last year, I'd say.
Nice. So that's the fresh stuff right there. If you're using it in the last 12 months, it's like this is the stuff that I'm on right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Dude, so sick.
And of course, all the staples that we all,
Of course.
the super famous plugins,
right.
They're always going to be there,
Yeah.
But sometimes it's like, okay, I love Fab Filter Pro Q3. It's like one of the most famous EQs. It's a workhorse.
Yeah.
It's got all these tools in it. But let me swap that out, put it on this Make Believe. It's a different vibe, getting the same job done.
Yeah. Switches it up a little bit.
Yeah.
That's sick, dude. That's I mean, so much. If you have not written notes for this, people, okay? Go back, give me some retention listens. I want to get, people watching the whole episode for these, gems. Also, we'll be posting like royalty splits on the description, so, you're gonna have to send some stuff our way, send mostly to Bob, but I would like a small percentage as well. And this is actually the most important question of the day, the last question of the day. And I thank you again, Bob, for hanging and
of course
doing the pod. Most important question of the day. What's the food spot we got for today?
I knew that was so I got 2 picked out for you.
Okay, cool.
One is a Louisiana Cajun spot.
Ooh.
And the other one is a Cuban spot.
Ooh.
And if you don't like either one of those, there's plenty of normal stuff around
Oh
too.
my goodness. Well, I'll tell you right now. We're gonna let you know in the behind the scenes stuff where we went and what we actually ended up doing. But we're gonna have a good lunch.
Yeah.
Bob, you're the man. Thank you so much, dude.
Yes, sir. Anytime.
Guys, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, comment. Intrepid Network is where we are. We're gonna keep dropping more pods like this with awesome people like Bob. So stay tuned and love you guys. Peace out.
Later.